Welcome to Papa Junk Shop. Well, I started on another project and I wasn't going to video it, but I got started on it and I thought, well, what the heck, maybe I will. And the project is I want to make a small, I guess you call it a weight transfer sled for garden tractor pulling. Just something to play around with. Probably mostly for our own use, grandkids and stuff. They kind of like the garden tractor stuff, especially my son that lived next door. His boy loves John Deere garden tractors. So once upon a time, 20 years ago, when the kids were small, I made a go-kart and I used this rear end, which I was told was a 1931 Austin, and I had the frame and the front end too. Been long gone, the rest of it. This has been laying outside in the brush for probably 20 years, and I had to actually dig it out of the dirt, some of it. And I brought it in, and something didn't seem right, because when I held one wheel and turned the other one, the input shaft didn't move. And when I turned the input shaft, the wheels didn't move. So I tore it apart, and this had been cut down before I got it narrowed. It's got mechanical brakes. Let's see here. Right here is where it was cut and welded back together. Now, I didn't do it, somebody else did long before me. So I tore it apart, and what I found was this is where they cut the axle. It had just one little weld on it, and apparently it let loose. I don't know if I can find... Yeah, I should have cleaned it up before I showed you guys, shouldn't I? But right someplace there was one little spot right there. Looks like all they welded it. So I guess I'm going to try to get that, well, I'll put a little V in here. Now I got it all lined up as close as I can and get that welded. And that should put this back into operational shape. And what I'd hope to do for this pulling sled, I don't know if anybody else has ever done it or not. I really haven't paid a lot of attention. But I want to make mine operate with hydraulics. Now this input shaft to the rear end, which is here, this goes right in there. And what I would like to do is hook a hydraulic pump onto here. Now what I'm not sure of is whether I'll be able to direct drive a hydraulic pump, whether I'll move enough fluid to move the cylinder, or whether I'm going to have to gear it up or gear it down, or just what I'm going to have to do. It's going to be kind of an experiment. And the pump I'm going to use is this one, which I think is government surplus from a lot of years ago, and I don't think it's ever been used. I think it's new. It's still got the plugs in it. It says it's 3,000 pounds and 3 gallons a minute. And that's the cylinder I want to use. And I'm not sure if that will be enough length to move the weight box, or whether I'm going to come up with some kind of arrangement, something like they have on the forklifts, where you get a little more travel out of the length of the cylinder. So everything's kind of up in the air, and I'm just getting started. And what surprised me is this thing's been out there for 20 years laying in the brush. And look at the brake drums. They're shiny inside. I don't know how that can be. That's the brake shoes. So I'll see you later when I get some progress. Okay, I got the axle welded back together. We'll clean up an assembly and we'll see if she works. Now I got the rear end put back together. Found some garden tractor tires, I think they are. I think they're going to work. I had to re-drill the rims because they weren't for 4 bolts. They are now. And I got some pretty hefty angle iron. Kind of mocking things up and in the thinking and designing stage. So, not sure exactly how it's going to go, but I'm trying to get ideas. Okay, I'm working on the plate that's going to go on the bottom, the part they actually pull, and that piece of plate needs to have some protection around the edges. So I got some measures 3.5 inch on the outside pipe. And I'm going to put that around the outside edges, but I don't have enough to make it solid pipe, so I'm going to slice it in half and just put a half on. That way the outside will be rounded. That should be sufficient. And I'm going to cut it with my plasma cutter. Of course, my track isn't long enough to do the whole pipe, so I've got it set up so I can go down here as far as I can, and then I'll run the track back, and then I'll move the pipe up, and then I finish it. At least that's what the plan is. I'm going to give her a try here. Okay, it's been a while since I run this. Running a little too fast at the beginning. Looks like it's going to work. I'm sure you guys don't want to sit and watch that thing go all the way through, so just thought I'd tell you how I was going to do it. Okay, it's about an hour later. Speed control in my plasma cutter track decided to go bad. So I had to fix it. I didn't have a spare, and I've used these in quite a few projects and they seem to work pretty good, but didn't hold up in this one, so I went old school. She's got a rheostat in her, so no more electronic crap to go bad. Anyways, the knob isn't up there where it looks pretty. Had to put it there because that's the only place there was room enough. Anyways, we got 2 pieces now. And I learned something. Plasma cutting stuff usually doesn't get real hot. Well, pipes do. Because it's blowing all that heat down into the pipe. But turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. Just get that flag cleaned off of there. So, making progress. Okay, I got a couple of, well, partial afternoons invested in this part of it so far. That's the part that's going to be the resistance, the part you hook the tractor onto. It's like 38 by 40, I think. It's getting pretty heavy. All that stuff adds up. Put some hooks on it. What they were is just gigantic pieces of old chain, and I put different heights here because you don't want to pull up on it, because it'll lift, you know, tend to lift it up, and then you don't get as much resistance. At least that's my thinking. I could be wrong. So I put a couple different heights on it. Got that braced up pretty good. So we'll go to work on some of the rest of it now. Well, I thought before I went too much further I'd check out this hydraulic brilliant idea I got. So I set up kind of a little test rig. I got a funnel here tied onto a lamp to hold it above the pump. Just got some temporary fittings, not going to pressure it up, you know, just enough to see if it's going to move and how many turns it takes to actually move the cylinder very much. So I got it set up here, and I got a pair of vice grips on it, and I'm just spinning it by hand, and it's looking like it's moving pretty good. So I think I'm going to be able to direct drive it. I'll put you up on a tripod. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but I'll give it a couple spins. It's got a little bit of air in it yet, so it's a little bit jerky. I guess it's all in the frame. That rear end's 5 to 1, so 5 turns here is moving that considerably. So I'm going to try her direct drive and see how it's going to work. Just thought I better confirm some of that before I went any further. Okay, I've been plugging away at this. This is a long project. Awful lot of thinking involved in it. I got this framework, got the U-bolts through the channel iron, which is going to raise it up, so I got clearance for the cylinder, and got some vice grips holding the rails, trying to get an idea for the width to make the box. So I got the framework for the box made, and I got some wheels cut out of some round stock, and this is the framework. I got some band iron pieces I cut and welded in place for the wheels, and that's going to go like, if I can do it one-handed, like so. I'll cut these off here, have a washer and a cotter pin probably, and that'll be the wheels, and that'll ride on those rails. And then I'll probably have a safety bar that runs down underneath so that it can't come off of there in case something would go wrong. I don't know what, but you can't be too careful. So now that I got the box figured out, I can get the rails more or less mounted in place, and I'll make the box once I get the whole thing done. I can kind of judge by then how high that's going to be, because I don't want to make it real high because I don't want to lift those weights up real high. So trying to keep everything down low. Getting too old to lift that stuff. Show you when I make some more progress. Got some more parts made, and I got kind of a mock-up, getting things fit up. Don't have it welded yet, just got some clamps and vice grips and stuff holding it in place. I made a bar to go across the back to space it and hold the cylinder, and I fabricated a couple of straps, I guess you call it, welded them in place, put some spacers here so I got clearance for the hose connection, and then that'll get welded here once I'm sure. And I got the weight box, wheels on it, it's in the frame. I made another bar for up front here to space it. It's not welded, just clamps. And I got two positions for the cylinder. One will run it all the way to the end, and the other one will run it back as far as it'll go. Let's see, it's in the one that'll go all the way now. So if I push this up, right there's where it stops. And then if I pull this back, like so, and then this amount here, I got another pinhole down under here, about right there. So I can move this back another, let's see, it's going to go back to about here if I move the position on the cylinder. So that gives me two options for the weight box, how far it goes up. So I think it's looking like it's time to do some tack welding, enough to make sure it stays in place, and then some more thinking on what the next move is. Maybe get the legs made that go down and attach to the part you pull. Let you know when I get some more accomplished. Okay, got some mounts made for the part you pull. I got some pins on them with some clips. And I also put some bracing on. I thought it probably wouldn't hurt to have a little extra stability. So I stuck my little scale on here and picked it up, and I had 216 pounds so far. That's with the other part sitting on the ground back there too, so it's going to be pretty heavy just by itself even. I guess get the axle and stuff mounted back on next and go to work on the weight box some more. Well, I got the framework for the upper part of the box done. It was quite the pain in the butt. But I think it's going to work alright. It's 22 inches wide, 18 inches high. What, 29 inches long, I think. Should hold plenty enough to hold back a normal everyday garden tractor that the kid's on. I guess I'll have to get some metal for the sides made next. Now I got the sides made and installed and decided I better name it. There's some paint on it and some So it's coming. Something different than welding for a change. Okay, I'm working on the adapter that's going to go on the input shaft to the rear end and hook the hydraulic pump up. I got a 1/2 inch hole through. I think this is 1.25 inches. I got to go through with a 5/8, and that'll be for the pump end. And I got to go in about 3 inches with a 3/4 inch. That's what size the input shaft is to the rear end. And then I'll, let's see, I have to determine where there's a through hole on the input shaft. I'll probably use that and some set screws. And then the hydraulic pump has a spline on it. So I'll make that hole so the spline fits it, and then I'll put set screws, and hopefully I can get them to go in between the high spots on the spline. I did that with one other project and it worked fine. I put about, I can't remember if it was 4 or 6, depends on how many teeth are on the spline, so I'll determine all that as I go. I got the hydraulic pump coupler made. Turned out good. Everything fit nice and tight like it was supposed to. And I wound up with the through hole here. And I'm going to put 2 set screws there also. And for the spline, I wound up with 3. There was 12 spots, so 3 come out to work well. If it acts like it's going to be a problem, I can put 3 more in. And I had 2 of these pumps. I'd used one for something else a long time ago, and I'd made a mounting plate, so I robbed the mounting plate off of the other one. So now I got to figure out how to get a mount from this plate up here to my framework. So that'll be the next project. Now I got kind of a mock-up of a pump mount. Got a piece of angle iron here. Just got everything on with vice grips, temporary. And I made a plate here that goes between the angle iron and the pump mount. I put some slots in it so I can have some freedom for adjustment. And I'm thinking it's going to work out alright. Everything seems to be okay, so I think I'll make that permanent. I think I'm going to bolt everything in place, so just in case it doesn't work out, it'll be a lot easier to take apart. Well, I found a plastic gas tank in my collection, saved out of something, probably a riding lawnmower or something, and put some band iron straps in, made some straps to hold it in place. I think it's going to work pretty good. Looks like it'll hold at least 2 gallons, maybe more. So I think we should be good for the hydraulic reservoir. Now to figure out some plumbing and controls. I come up with a plan for the plumbing, and it seems to work. I had to buy a couple of hoses. Did that yesterday, and they decided that they're not going to have the stores open anymore, so it's a good thing I went when I did, I guess. So what I've got is, this is one of the new hoses. Comes out of the pump, goes into a piece of 1/2 inch pipe, and I had to do all kinds of sorting and cobbling to come up with enough pieces to make it go, but I think it's going to be okay. And then it switches down here to a piece of 1/2 inch copper with some joints that I can work with. The hose doesn't have any swivels on it or anything, so I got to have some place where I can take it apart, and that's it. And I made a a post here which bolts through there, that back brace, and the plumbing is held on there with a couple of hose clamps, and the hydraulic comes up here, and when the valve's in that position blocked off, it blocks the return, so the fluid has to go to the cylinder, goes to the cylinder, moves the box up. And I put a valve on here to let the air out, because I figured that high spot's going to get air trapped in it. And of course the first one I had on there was the only place I had a leak. You can see there's still some on there, so I replaced it with one that doesn't leak. And when I put this handle in this position, it goes back into the hydraulic reservoir there. And I pumped it up there, and I don't have my return springs on yet, so it won't return by itself, but I can push it back. You can see in the hose back there, it's turned red because I used ATF for the hydraulics. So this moves it back. Okay, and if I put this in this position, and I've got this one wheel up off the ground, and then I turn this, you can see the box is moving. So it does work. So I think what I'm going to do now is make a little bit of room and actually take it out of here, hook my tractor on it, and drag it around the yard a little bit, just to prove that it's going to work. See if I got any bugs in it, and I want to see what it does when you come to the end, because I don't have any pressure relief on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to need it. I'm thinking it might just lock up the rear tires, which won't hurt anything. So the less things I have to have, the simpler it is, the better. So I'll see in a few minutes when I get it outside. And it's actually nice out right now. That's very unusual, because usually when you want to do something, it's not. Okay, we're outside. It's really windy. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I'm going to take it up the driveway. I brought it down here, and the box went up like it was supposed to. So I'm going to do it again so you guys can see it. So I think it's going to work. I got my big tractor out because I didn't want to tear things up trying to pull it with a little guy. Well, during my test run outside, I did find one problem, which I wasn't really surprised, was that when I got back up here on the pavement, I had the box all the way to the top on purpose, because I wanted to see what would happen with this pump when it come to the end, because I don't have any bypass, and it didn't skid the tires. it stripped these the ends right off of the set screws that I had in the coupler. They were 1/4 inch, so I upgraded them to 5/16, and then where this spline was, I took a whole complete tooth off of every place there's a set screw, and being there's 12 of them, it's even for 3, so I completely took them off so that this 5/16 set screw goes right down in between the other 2 splines, and it almost matches up with the sides of the set screw, and I'm able to crank them up a lot tighter, so I think that's going to resolve that problem. And I got the springs attached to the box. I just have to attach them back here now, so that's going to be my next thing, and then we'll try those springs, see if they return the box okay. Okay, the springs are installed, and I run the box up to the end. Let's see if they bring her back all right. Yep, it's all the way to the end on that setting. So, looks like, now I'll have to cut these off so they're not sticking out. And now I gotta come up with a, I don't know, I guess you call it like a tow bar or some kind of a hitch deal where you can hook onto it to pull it back. So, get that done. I think all the stuff is pretty much done as far as operation, except for a dirt shield on the pan, I guess. So keep plugging away at it. Yeah, I went up in my scrap pile looking for stuff to make the yeah, whatever you call it, pullback hitch thingy, and I found this. So I think I'm going to be able to make this work. Yet, if I can hold the camera and this at the same time, it's almost the right fit. So I think it's going to work out. I'm just not liking that end of it. I'm thinking I'd rather just have a big loop or something that would be easy to drop over a peg or a ball or something like that. So I might come up with something different for the end of that. But looks like I'm going to get out of this easy. Too bad everything's all closed up and can't go anywhere or go buy a lottery ticket. I usually don't get lucky like this. Okay, I got the pullback hitch figured out and mounted. I found an old U-bolt. Cut that old bent up tongue off of there and put that on. That way you can just drop it down over real quick onto something. Hopefully that's the plan anyways. And I'll fold it up and come up with some way to hold it up there when they're actually pulling. Bungee cord or something. Don't know. So I guess the dirt shield, and then it's some cleanup and paint time, I do believe. Yeah, I knew it was getting hard to move around. I just wondering how much it was weighing. So I sort of got it balanced. It's hanging. It's not touching the ground anymore. And my scale says, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that or not. There you go. 563.5 pounds. So I know I've been welding a lot of iron together. I didn't think it was quite that much, but it's coming. And got the hooks made for the side of the weight box so that it can't can't come off. They just follow along the bottom of the angle iron. And we took it outside and played with it some more, and I discovered that when you get some weight in it and then back tires are getting some pretty good traction and you come to the end, that it actually blew one of my lines off. So I got looking at the pump, and there's already a pressure relief valve built in it. So I was able to adjust that. I've been able to simulate it in the garage. I haven't actually had it outside yet to try it, but this is the connection right here for the it says RES on it, so I'm thinking maybe that meant reserve back to the tank. And you can see there's a little bit of fluid in there from where I was playing with it yet, but that just goes back, follows back and goes back to the reservoir. So I think, other than the dirt shield, I think it's done, and I'm not going to do the dirt shield now because I don't have any material. It seems like it'd be quite heavy enough, so I can always add that later. So now it's a matter of cleaning up some stuff and putting some paint on it, I think. Okay, I got some paint on her and got her finished up. Got her outside, got her all put together. I got the box run up to the top so we can do a walk around. I'm not going to demonstrate it because we've had rain, the ground's really wet, don't want to tear up the yard and stuff, so, but I'll have some videos later, I'm sure, with the kids pulling it and having fun with it. So I think I got most of the bugs out of it, but the final test will be when they start pulling it, and we'll see. So that's what she looks like with paint on her. That's the pump and all the lines. The 31 Austin rear end. Lawnmower gas tank turned into a hydraulic reservoir. All made from scrap. I think I got like $28 in it for the hoses and a couple of muffler clamps. Everything else was stuff I already had. Even the paint came from a yard sale. Garage door springs from somebody's old garage door. And I'll just flip this handle down and the box rolls back. Been kind of a long project. I think it's the most welding and sawing and stuff I've done in a while. And I guess if you enjoyed this one, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If any of you guys come up with your own, I'd like to see it. This is just my ideas. I'm sure you guys have got some that are probably better and easier. So see you next time.